All right, getting the Facebook Live thing starting. Come on, go live. Welcome everybody to the Caring for the Caregivers Healthier Black Elders Center Lunch and Learn. We will be starting at 1 o'clock, so just in a couple minutes. So please hang tight while we get everything set up and ready to go. Thank you.
Hey, Sean, can you just let me know which slides I'm doing? Because it's on my phone. So,
yep, no problem. I'll transition to you.
Just say Holly. Okay, thank you.
All right, so we are at 1 o'clock. We're going to do a few introductory announcements before we get into the presentation here. My name is Sean Knurek. I am the Community Outreach Coordinator for the Healthier Black Elders project work that we're doing in Flint. This is our first online webinar, so again, please bear with us. We're going to do the best we can with what we have. Just a few notes before I pass this off to Vanessa. First, this is in a webinar format. So if you are signed on to Zoom, we will not see you. The video only goes one way. It goes from us presenting out to you. So you don't have to worry about anybody seeing your surroundings, or, you know, if you have to get up and go get a sandwich or a glass of water, that's not a problem. We'll never know. At the end, for those who are logged into Zoom who are not phoned in, you will be directed to a very brief survey. It's part of our USDA civil rights requirements for Michigan State University as a land-grant institution. It is an optional survey. You do not have to fill it out, but we would very much appreciate it if you would be willing to do so. Right. On that note, I will pass this off to my Detroit counterpart, Vanessa. Vanessa, you want to go ahead and welcome everybody?
Sure, thank you, Sean. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our workshop on caring for the caregiver. My name is Vanessa Rorai, and I'm a program coordinator for the Healthier Black Elder Center. I would like to give a brief introduction of the Healthier Black Elder Center before we get started. The Healthier Black Elder Center, or HBEC, is funded by the National Institute of Health, and it has been continuously funded for over 20 years now. Many years ago, the National Institute of Health put out a call for action to increase the participation of minorities in research and the amount of minority scientists conducting research on minority populations. This created various centers across the country that focuses on a particular population. Here in Michigan, it created the Michigan Center for Urban African American Aging Research, or what we call MUCWAR. MUCWAR is jointly run by Wayne State University, Michigan State University, and the University of Michigan. I work out of Wayne State at the Institute of Gerontology in Detroit, and the Healthier Black Elder Center is the community core of MUCWAR. HBC is a wonderful program that aims to address and reduce health disparities through research and education. We host various events that provide health-related education to the community with a focus on aging. We provide education on topics that range from diabetes and heart health to food safety, nutrition, creating healthy habits, and brain health. I am very sorry we cannot be holding this event in person together, but I'm very happy that we can still connect this way and keep providing education in the meantime. To learn more about our program, you can visit our website, which is www.muckwar.wayne.edu, and I'm going to spell that out. It's www.m as in Mary, CUAAAR.Wayne, WAYNE.edu. Or you can always give me a call. My office telephone number is 313-664-2604. That's 313-664-2604. And again, my name is Vanessa Rorai. I'm one of the program coordinators for the Healthier Black Elder Center. I thank you all for joining us today, and I really hope you enjoy your workshop.
All right, thank you, Vanessa. All right, so today's program is called Caring for the Caregiver. I briefly introduced myself, Sean Knurek. I work with the Healthier Black Elders program that we are starting in Flint, but I also work for Michigan State University Extension. I am a health educator. I am based in Shiawassee County, and I cover Shiawassee, Genesee, Saginaw Bay, and Midland counties. And I have a focus on mental health, social emotional health, and mindfulness and diabetes education. And I'd like to introduce my counterpart, Holly Tiret, my colleague and mentor from the Grand Rapids area, and she will launch us into the presentation after she introduces herself. Holly, go ahead.
Okay, great. It's good to go out to join you guys today. Like Sean said, my name is Holly Tiret, and I work in Kent County, but I also do the same programmings that Sean does, minus the diabetes program. So, all right, so welcome to, are we going to get started now? Okay, I can't see the PowerPoint, I can only see you, so.
Oops. All right.
That's okay. Let me get back to this. Okay, I got it now. Okay, so MSU is an affirmative action equal opportunity employer. Michigan State University Extension programs and materials are open to all without regard to race, color, national origin, sex, gender, gender identity, religion, age, height, weight, disability, political beliefs, sexual orientation, marital status, or family status, or veteran status. We read that at the beginning of all of our presentations because we're funded in part by the USDA, and it's not just part of our civil rights compliance, but it's also a mission and a vision and a passion for MSU-Extension, and it's been for over 100 years. So the workshop overview, we are going to talk about recognizing the importance of caregivers in caring for long-term caregiving situations. And we'll also talk about practicing some positive self-care through using some examples from our Powerful Tools for Caregivers workshop. And we'll see whether or not we'll talk about when we're going to be doing some powerful tools and how you might be able to join those classes. So one of the first things we want to talk about is what is a caregiver. Sometimes called an informal caregiver is an unpaid individual, for example, who cares for somebody like a spouse, partner, a family member, a friend, or a neighbor. And they're involved in assisting their care receiver with the activities of everyday life. Formal caregivers are those that are paid and are providing care in someone's home or in a residential facility. So all of us are caregivers in some way, and maybe we don't recognize that. And one of the things we want to do is bring our own experience of caregiving into these workshops. I'd just like to share personally that is the woman in the wheelchair is my mom. She was in a nursing home her last 4 years of life. And we miss her very dearly, but this is one of the pictures of my caregiver story, so.
Okay, so caregiving, how prevalent is it in the United States? Approximately 53 million caregivers have provided unpaid care to an adult or child in the last 12 months. And this number has risen significantly over the past 5 years by about 9.5 million. About 47.9 million Americans have provided unpaid care to an adult age 50 or older in the last 12 months. And this number has gone up by 8.1 million over the past 5 years. Some more statistics. The majority of caregivers, so 76%, care for one other adult, while 24% care for 2 or more adults. More than 16 million adult family caregivers care for someone who has Alzheimer's disease or another form of dementia. So this is a large chunk of the population, and it may be a little bit more than you may have thought about at first glance. So continuing on, caregiving tasks by the numbers. We know it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, but putting it into numbers, sometimes that doesn't always happen. So on average, caregivers spend 13 days each month on tasks such as shopping, food preparation, housekeeping, laundry, transportation, and giving medication. Caregivers spend about 6 days per month on feeding, dressing, grooming, walking, bathing, and assistance toileting. 13 hours a month are spent researching care services or information on a disease or diseases, as well as coordinating physician visits or managing financial matters. So there's for those on the phone, there's a pictograph on the screen right now, and it shows a variety of things that impact the caregiver. So we have five major things that we've kind of distilled it down to talk about, again, what affects the caregiver. So informal family caregivers of adults with chronic conditions provide unpaid care estimated at $470 billion with a B dollars a year in the US. If you want to put that in perspective, the same time this study was done, you could compare that number to the total sales of this small little chain you may have bought something from before. It's called Walmart. Walmart's sales in the same given year was $481 billion. So Walmart's getting that $481 billion. Meanwhile, caregivers are not receiving anything at times for the work that they're given. So the 5 things that really impact the caregiver. First is mental health, greater degrees of depression and stress. Second is physical health, increased rates of physical ailments such as acid reflux, GERD, headaches, and general pains and aches, an increased tendency to develop serious illness. And caregivers also have a tendency to have higher levels of obesity and overall body pain. Third, competing priorities. The potential negative effects on caregivers can extend well beyond mental and physical health effects. The fourth thing to affect caregivers, competing priorities. And there are potential negative effects on caregivers that can extend well beyond just the mental and physical health effects. Financial effects. As we can see, this is unpaid care. Caregiving increases the likelihood that actually in the study, women experience poverty and or reliance on public assistance more. And then finally, employment. And this speaks directly to income-related losses. We'll talk about each of these categories in the upcoming couple of slides. Holly?
Unmute. There we go. So greater degrees of depression and stress and lower rates of personal well-being has been shown in caregivers and are associated with the following factors. The care recipient's behavior problems, cognitive impairment, and functional disabilities. The duration and the amount of care provided, the caregiver's age, with older caregivers being more effective, the relationship between the caregiver and the care recipient, and then the caregiver's sex, with females being more affected. There are also more mental health issues of caregivers. Caregiving for someone with dementia is associated with higher levels of distress and depression than caring for someone who doesn't have dementia. The Mental Health and Substance Abuse Workforce for Older Adults, in whose hands, which was published in 2012, encourage professionals and direct service workers to prepare family caregivers for the role and to consider family caregivers as members of the healthcare workforce. Studies have consistently reported higher levels of depression and mental health problems among caregivers rather than their non-caregiving peers. 40 to 70% of caregivers have clinical significant symptoms of depression, with approximately a quarter to 1/2 of these caregivers meeting the diagnostic criteria for major depression. Depressed caregivers are more likely to have coexisting anxiety disorders, substance abuse or dependence, or chronic disease. Depression is also one of the most common conditions associated with suicide attempts. Sorry. As far as physical health goes, evidence shows that most caregivers are not prepared for the role and provide care with little or no support. Yet more than 1/3 of caregivers continue to provide intense care to others while suffering from poor health themselves. Studies have shown that an influential factor in a caregiver's decision to place an impaired relative in long-term care facility is the family caregiver's own physical health. Caregivers suffer from increased rates of physical ailments, and studies have shown that caregivers have a lowered immune response, which leads to frequent infection and increased risk of cancers. For example, caregivers have a 23% higher level of stress hormones and a 15% lower level of antibody responses. Caregivers also suffer from slower wound healing. Women providing care to an ill or disabled spouse are more likely to report a personal history of high blood pressure, diabetes, and higher levels of cholesterol. More physical health findings include women who spend 9 or more hours a week caring for an ill or disabled spouse increase their risk of heart disease by 2. Compared to non-caregivers, women caregivers are twice as likely not to fill a prescription because of the cost. Nearly 3/4 or 72% of caregivers reported that they had not gone to the doctor as often as they should, and more than half missed doctor's appointments. Caregivers' self-care suffers because they lack the time, the energy to prepare proper meals or to exercise. About 6 in 10 caregivers in a national survey reported that their eating and their exercising habits were worse than before. Caregivers in rural areas are at a greater disadvantage for having their own medical needs met due to difficulty getting to the hospital or to the doctor.
All right, thank you, Holly.
Sure.
Now we move on to competing priorities. The potential negative effects on caregivers can also extend well beyond mental and physical well-being. So caregivers, particularly younger caregivers, often experience disruptions to their education, meaning they have to put school on hold or maybe even drop out entirely, which has a long-term effect on their future career and potential future earnings. Caregiving can also result in considerable financial strain and can cause difficulties in other roles such as marriage and, as hinted at before, employment. Financially, again, there's a major impact to our nation's healthcare system. It mentioned earlier, the value of services provided by informal caregivers has steadily increased over the last decade, with an estimated economic value of $470 billion in 2017, up from $375 billion 10 years prior in 2007. And I already leaked this out. At $470 billion in 2017, the value of unpaid caregiving exceeded the value of both paid home care and total Medicaid spending in that year, and nearly matched the value of the sales of the world's largest company, Walmart. So employment, a study by Arno and colleagues from 2011, based on longitudinal data, examine the long-term economic effects on workers who either reduced their hours at work or left the workplace before full retirement age. The analysis found that income-related losses sustained by family caregivers, ages 50 and older, who would have to leave the workforce to care for a parent, are on average $303,880. Well, it's rounded up to $304,000. And that includes lost income and lost benefits over the caregiver's lifetime. Holly, back to you.
Great, thanks, Sean. So with all of these stressors and all of these effects of being an informal caregiver, caregivers need as many tools as possible. They need tools for reducing their personal stress, tools for changing negative self-talk into positive self-talk so you can keep that optimistic stance in life, tools for communicating your feelings or needs to others, tools for setting limits and asking for help, and tools for dealing with emotions such as anger, guilt, and depression. So self-care means taking responsibility for your own care, being able to have realistic expectations about what you can and what you can't do, and then being able to focus on what you can do. It also helps self-care to be able to communicate your emotions effectively with others and to be able to deal with emotions and set goals towards them.
All right. So reducing personal stress. This is something that's very important. There are a number of ways that we can do that. Exercise is excellent for some people. Being able to reflect upon yourself and identify your personal signs and sources of stress, because again, stress affects everybody a little bit differently, right? How I react to a stressful situation might be very different than how Vanessa reacts, or it might be very different than how Kent reacts. And that's okay, but it's important to know what our personal signs and sources are, so we might have a chance to try to intervene and stop. So what kind of stress reducers are there? Again, exercise can be, should be way up on the list, because that can really help bring down our cortisol or stress hormone levels in our bloodstream. But there are some other things. Deep breathing can be very helpful. Taking a big, deep, slow belly breath, then releasing it out. It has a very soothing, very relaxing, very calming effect. Progressive muscle relaxation. This is where an individual leads you through a period of time where you focus on particular parts of your body. You tense up some of the muscles, upon their command. And then you relax it. And you do that throughout the body, and that tensing and relaxing again can be very soothing. Guided imagery is another version of relaxation, and in fact, we're going to do a brief guided imagery activity here right now. So obviously, what we think and what we feel has a very powerful effect on our minds. One of the things we can do is learn to use our mind to relax our body. This is something that helps people reduce their stress. So what is guided imagery? Guided imagery it's like a guided daydream, where we picture ourselves in a peaceful, relaxing place. It can help us experience deep relaxation. We're now going to do a guided imagery. It's called a walk to the beach. If you feel uncomfortable with anything on this walk or during this period, picture yourself in another place or another setting that you would find relaxing. So, all right, it's time to relax now. For just a short time, let go of all outside concerns. In this guided imagery exercise, prepare yourself for a summertime stroll to the beach. Make yourself as comfortable as possible in your chair. Maybe uncross your legs, uncross your feet or your ankles. Relax your arms at your side. I invite you to close your eyes as a way of closing out unnecessary distractions, if you're comfortable doing so. If not, just maybe look down towards your lap or towards a table, or find something you might be able to focus your eyes on. In the distance, you can hear the waves rumbling onto the beach. The soft sand feels slightly cool between your toes. The plants on each side of the path tickle your legs as you take this leisurely walk. As you get closer, the sound of the waves gets louder. You can see the sun slowly beginning to set above. It's making the sky and the few clouds turn to pink and orange colors. As you continue down the path, you can see the water now. Its brilliant blue colors sparkling in the sunset. The calming ripples closest to the shore invite you to take a closer look. As you walk towards the water, leaving footprints behind, you start to feel the soft sand become more solid under your feet. It feels a little wet from the water near the shore. The edge of the water gleams with a white foam. You notice a few seashells in the sand. You bend over to pick up one and see its perfect shape and pearly insides. With the warm water trickling between your toes, you look up and out across the water as far as you can see, realizing now how small we are in the vastness of the universe. Just a few feet from the water's edge sits an empty chair. As you walk towards the chair, you can see small crabs sticking their heads out of tiny holes in the sand and running away as you draw near. After you take a seat in the chair, you're impressed by the harmony of the surroundings, the warmth of the summer air, the sweet smell of the water, your toes in the sand, your ears listening to the sound of the waves, and your eyes watching the sunset over the water. A feeling of peace cascades over you. You take a deep breath to take in more of this relaxing time. You sit here and rest a while, relaxed in the feeling that nothing else in your world matters right now. This is a time of pure enjoyment just for you. Listen to the sounds and relax some more. When you're ready, you begin to stand up, feeling the soft sand between your toes again, thankful that you've had this time to yourself. Remember that you can return to this place in your mind's eye whenever you want to. You begin to walk back along the sandy path that brought you to this peaceful place. You are grateful for this time of refreshment. Take a deep, cleansing breath and then slowly exhale. When you're ready, slowly begin to open your eyes. I return back to the room where you're sitting right now. So the point of doing that is to really kind of trigger our relaxation response, right? It's very soothing. It's very calming. Again, maybe if the beach doesn't do for you, you could think of a setting in the woods, or you think back to a more enjoyable, fun times, great memories from your past. And sometimes taking just those couple minutes can be very helpful for managing your own stress. And that's very important when we're talking about, again, caring for the caregiver. Holly?
There we go. I'm back. Thank you, Sean, for that. That was lovely. Another thing that helps if you're a caregiver is learning how to communicate your feelings and needs without creating more conflict and drama in your life. So learning some good principles of good communication, learning how to use I statements so that people can listen to what you think or what you feel without blaming them. Learning more assertive rather than aggressive needs when you're communication skills, when you have a conflict with someone. And another thing that people have found has helped is having a family meeting. A family meeting is a way for caregivers to get everybody on the same page, to work out who's doing what and when. And personally, I shared the story of my mom. I'm one of 9 kids. And everybody was feeling overworked by taking care of mom. And after we sat down and had our family meeting and all talked, someone said, well, I go over there on on Mondays. And somebody said, well, I go over there on Monday afternoons. Somebody else said, well, I go over there every Monday night. So that we found out through talking to each other that there were several of us going several times a day and repeating the same task that she needed to have done. So it helped to have us assign people different days, like Monday's your day, Tuesday's your day, Thursday, you know, that so on. So nobody was being overworked. So family meetings can be a good tool for caregivers. Another thing that is a good tool for a caregiver is learning to deal with your own emotions. A lot of feelings as a caregiver come up, like sadness or guilt or anger, which can lead to depression. And it's important to learn to listen to your feelings and find ways to deal with them, because sometimes our feelings are trying to tell us something important. If we're feeling overwhelmed and breaking down or screaming and yelling at people, sometimes we need to find out the reason underneath those feelings, and that's a good time to ask for help. Delegate duties. Figure out what you can and cannot handle. So listening to our emotions, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, is a really important part of being a caregiver. And then having a power of optimism. Thinking about what you say to yourself on a daily basis. If you're really down in the dumps, instead of getting up and saying, I can't handle this, I just can't handle this one more time, you know, turning that around to say, yeah, you know what, I've handled tougher things before, I can do this. Am I on the next one too, Sean?
Go for it.
Okay. So another thing with caregiving is to be really aware of dealing with problems as they come up. It's important to follow some steps about identifying what you actually think the problem is, listing out ideas, just brainstorming, maybe we could do this, maybe we could do that, picking an idea to try. Just try it out and agree with everybody. We're just going to try this for a couple weeks and see if it works. And then evaluate it. Did it work? Heck no, nobody did what they were supposed to be doing. Okay, well, maybe we got to try something else. And it just keeps going on and on until you can figure out how you could solve problems and finding other resources to help you. And sometimes problem solving is accepting that it can't be solved right now and just letting it go. Me?
Yep.
Okay. So one of the greatest tools that you can do is to actually make an action plan for some self-care. An action plan and powerful tools for caregivers isn't about something that you need to do. It's something that you want to do, because you as a caregiver get lost in all these caregiving duties. So pick something that is fun, that is enjoyable, that's reachable, something that you're going to be able to accomplish, and that it's behavior specific. And then actually write it down. This week I will take a walk 2 times in the mornings for 20 minutes. And I think I can do this. My confidence level of this between a 0 to 10 is about a 9. I think I can fit in 2 walks this week. And then just start with little things that make you happy. Maybe it's reading a book for 10 minutes of something you enjoy. Maybe it's calling up a friend and laughing and giggling twice a week. Lots of different things, but you really need to find something that helps fill your cup back up while you're caregiving.
All right, so for those of you that are on the phone, you won't see the image on the screen, but the image is of a flight attendant putting on an oxygen mask. That it's what they do before the plane starts to move and starts to get on the runway and take off. So on an airplane, an oxygen mask descends in front of you. What do? As we all know, or if you've been on a flight and you listen to the attendant, The first rule is to put on your own oxygen mask before you assist anyone else. Only when we first help ourselves can we effectively help others. Caring for yourself is one of the most important and one of the most often forgotten things that you can do as a caregiver. When your needs are taken care of, the person you care for will benefit as well. Remember, it's not selfish to focus on your own needs and desires when you're a caregiver. It's actually a pretty important part of that job. You are responsible for your own self-care. So with that, try to focus on these following self-care practices. So 1, learn and use stress reduction techniques. It could be mindfulness, could be meditation, prayer, yoga, tai chi. There are all sorts of different stress reduction techniques. Go out there and experiment. Maybe do a little reading about that. If there are online classes, or once a week are able to return to more community activities, seek them out. Seek out some of these activities. Maybe learn how you can help yourself there. 2, attend to your own healthcare needs. Keep regular appointments, schedule regular appointments. If you're diabetic, make sure that you're testing your blood sugar as often as you can. Check your blood pressure, all of these things. Our body gives us a lot of real little signals that things are going wrong. But if we're not taking the time to look at them, to pay attention to them, to acknowledge them, by the time sometimes we figure it out after that period of neglect, there could be some very serious damage that happens. So, we want to make sure to take care of your own health. Get proper rest and proper nutrition. You've probably heard that since you were 3 years old, but you know what? It's still true. Your body needs sleep time to recover, so that it can heal up, from injuries, so you can replenish your energy reserves, and do your best to try to eat some healthier foods. When you think of food as fuel to help the body run and operate, we then can kind of tap into our levels of knowledge as to maybe what we should eat a little bit more of versus what we shouldn't. Exercise regularly, even if it's only for 10 minutes at a time. I know the goals for exercise each day or per week is 150 minutes, 2.5 hours. So that sounds like a lot, but that doesn't mean that all needs to be done in one day. 30 minutes a day over 5 days, that's 150 minutes. That's your 2.5 hours. And that becomes feasible. But then you think that, 30 minutes, I can't work out for 30 minutes. Well, break it into chunks, 10 minutes at a time, maybe a brief morning walk, maybe something in the afternoon, maybe you're putting away groceries or moving some things in the garage. That can be physical activity too. That can be exercise. But make sure you're getting some physical activity. Keep your muscles moving. 5, take some time off without feeling guilty. Call up a family member to maybe say, hey, could you help me for a couple hours so I can go out and meet a friend for coffee, or so I can just have a phone call with a friend in peace, and don't feel guilty about it. That's important for yourself. It's important for your own health, physically and mentally. A few more tips. Participate in pleasant, nurturing activities, such as reading a good book, taking a warm bath. Listen to some soft, gentle, soothing, relaxing music. Painting or drawing. Sometimes that can be very, very calming. It could stimulate other parts of your brain, and it can really help connect to your mind and your body. 7, seek and accept the support of others. Not all of us have a Superman logo on our chest. We might like to think we do, but a lot of the major tasks involved with caregiving, we can try to do everything ourselves, but then what's left? How do we care for ourselves if we're giving all of ourselves to help somebody else? So if you can find someone who will help, I've always heard the phrase in my life, look for the helpers. If someone's willing to help, don't be afraid to ask, but if someone's willing to help, accept that help. It'll be better for you. 8, seek supportive counseling when you need it, or talk to a trusted counselor or friend or pastor. It's important to have, a confidant, somebody you can vent to, you can speak to. Sometimes it's important to just get things off our chest, not that we're expecting any kind of response, but sometimes the act of verbalizing it or saying the words can kind of help us to organize our thought process, so we're just not so scatterbrained, so cloudy. And stress will make our brains somewhat mixed up, scattered, and quite cloudy. 9, identify and acknowledge your feelings. You have a right to all of those feelings. Frustration, anger, sadness, the feeling of loss. That is what you're experiencing. You may experience. You have the right to those feelings, and you have a right to those emotions. We can work to get through those, but you have to, acknowledge that they're happening. Sometimes giving it a name and saying it out loud, sometimes even that can take a little bit of weight off your shoulders. 10, change the negative ways you view situations. We're programmed with a negativity bias. You can see this sometimes in the news. You can see this in day-to-day life. That, let's just make an example out of the blue. You can walk through a beautiful field of wildflowers, something really nice and colorful, but you know what our eyes might focus on? Might focus on the one giant overgrown weed way in the middle that just looks like it doesn't belong. We're focused on that. We're not, we're losing out on the beauty of the positive things, whereas because we're only looking for those negatives, or we're more likely to see negative things. So, if we can change our perspective and be grateful and thankful for the goods in our life, the beauties, all things positive, that can be very helpful. And then finally, set goals for yourself. Within caregiving, again, we have a tendency of forgetting about ourselves and forgetting about living our lives to the fullest and our dreams. We set that aside, and with an open and huge heart, but we set that aside because our focus becomes on another. But keep setting goals for yourself. I've long heard that sometimes when you set a goal for yourself, you'll be surprised at how quickly sometimes you can achieve them. So if you create these action plans, even just taking these small step forwards to do something, anything for your own personal benefit and gain and health, you're going to find that you're going to achieve them more often than not. So what sort of self-care tips are the best? I don't have an answer for that. We gave you a number of suggestions, but ultimately you're going to have to find out the ones that work for you. And you might know those. You might know those off the top of your head. You might be able to list off 10 or 15 different things. And that's great. You might not be able to answer that question right now. And that's okay too. So after we leave from this lunch and learn from this presentation, take some time to think about that. What are the kind of things that help me help me? And it could just be standing outside looking at the clouds, although as I look out my window right now, I don't see many in the sky. Or it could be that little excitement when a thunderstorm rolls through and just sitting and watching the light show as the skies go. It could be anything. So take that time to reflect upon yourself and remember about those things that really help and really work for you. this gets us to the end of the presentation here. What we were discussing and I always like to use the phrase greatest hits. We run a series, MSU-Extension runs a series called Powerful Tools for Caregivers, and that's where some of our talking points came from today. Many area agencies on aging will also offer this class all throughout the state. Because of the times right now, we have moved to an online platform using Zoom, much like we're using today. And if you are interested, there is a class starting on July 14th. We'll have our contact information in one of the last slides here. And actually, when you leave the webinar, I think it may take you to the page where you could register if you're interested in learning, developing, or maybe sharpening up more tools that may help you as a caregiver. So thank you so much for your time today. Again, I echo what Vanessa said earlier. I would much prefer to be doing this in person and get to meet everybody, see their smiling faces, and just, you know, be community again. But this is not the time, and that's okay. So our email addresses are on the webpage. Holly's is Tiret, Tiret @msu.edu. Mine is Knurek, SE, KNUREKSE @msu.edu. If you have any questions or would like to know some more information about upcoming programmings, please feel free to reach out. Also, phone numbers, if you're so interested and can't see this. Holly's is 616-632-7893. And my number, 989-743-2254. All right. We always post this at the end of our presentations as well. So thank you so very much for your time. Vanessa, would you like to address our participants once more before we go?
I think that was a great ending. Thank you so much, Sean and Holly, for a wonderful presentation. And thank you everyone for joining us today. As Sean said, if you're interested in more information and would like to learn about future programming, please reach out to Sean, or you can reach out to myself to learn more about the Healthier Black Elder Center. So thank you, stay safe, and have a great day.
Thank you very much for your time, everybody.